Hi, I'm Andrew Halsman. I work at Family Tree Counseling Associates, and I'd like to invite you to this video, which I'm calling Stop Working on Your Relationship, which is a funny title for someone who's a relationship therapist to put on a video, I'm sure. So a lot of people come into counseling and their relationship is in a bad place, and they're at the end of their line and they need work on their relationship. Really, the focus, though, should not be working on your relationship. The focus should be working on yourself. And you've probably heard this before, but it's really hard to have a relationship if you don't love yourself, if you're looking for someone to fill that void that's inside of you. So when people are in a relationship and they're in a relationship for a while, and the time when they've been very loving and very connected, the initial time, what we would call the enmeshment time, the romantic love time, has passed, you have to deal with the realities of life. You have to deal with children and work and school and jobs around the house and all types of things that are part of living. And so sometimes a person feels ignored in the relationship, or a person feels criticized in the relationship. And people come into counseling, people come into marital therapy, and they feel slighted in this relationship. They feel like they've kind of bought something that they didn't want, that the relationship is different than they want. And of course, they want to work on the relationship. They want to change things. Often, though, when people are saying that, they're talking about wanting to change the other person, and they're focused on what the other person can do for them. And it's really hard for someone to fill that void if you are unhappy. Even if that person really loves you and really is connected to you, that can't last forever because they have their own life and their own needs and their own focus and their own goals. So that's why I'm saying stop really working on the relationship. And what you're doing when you're in recovery, when you're in counseling, is you're trying to figure out who you are and how to best express it, and pay attention to how you're being treated as well. So the relationship is important. The relationship is a catalyst for your feelings. So if the person who you love, or the person who you're intimate with and connected with, doesn't talk to you in a way, or doesn't talk to you at all, or doesn't pay attention to you, or criticizes you, or is abusive or hurtful in some way, then your feelings are being triggered. And the feelings that we talk about often at Family Tree are the feelings that you have that are inside of you, that are from your life, your history, your family of origin. And those feelings are yours. They're part and parcel of who you are. And so that's the point of this, is you're not working on the other person. Like I said, people come in and when they're saying the relationship, they're really saying, let's fix the other person. And it's not really about fixing the other person. It's about paying attention to who you are. So if you haven't felt loved in your life, if you have internal issues, as we all do, you have baggage, you have family of origin, things that are not resolved, then you may have fears, and you may have a low tolerance for intimacy. You may want intimacy and see intimacy as a positive thing, but you may not be able to tolerate it. You may not be comfortable with being vulnerable and being real and being open, which is part of intimacy. You may have mental and emotional blocks to intimacy. You have expectations of what the other person should be in the relationship, how they should take care of you, or how they should be loving, or how they should talk to you. All these things are layered on the other person in the relationship, and they're really issues that are inside of you. Of course, the other person has their own issues, and they're dealing with their own mental and emotional blocks, and their tolerance for intimacy, and their high or low expectations of what a spouse or a partner should be. And so all of these things are a perfect storm for hurt and rejection and abandonment and shame issues and control issues and all of the little bywords that I can put in here. All of these words are just about how we're treated and how we feel about being treated. So if all of a sudden your spouse is blowing up at you, that's going to affect you. What do you do about that? Do you blow up at them? Do you go away and shut down? Do you cut off, as we say? Well, those are ways that people deal with relationships, and it just kind of keeps the cycle going. So if both people are not dealing with what's inside of them and expecting the other person to be there for them and expecting the other person to fix them, if you're looking for love by trying to be filled, by trying to be you complete me kind of title here, then you're going to be very disappointed. No one can complete you. No one can fill you totally. You can be with someone who loves you and cares about you, but they still have their own particular brand of craziness and their own baggage, and they're going to affect you. There's no relationship where people do not have issue and do not fight and do not argue and do not make each other uncomfortable. That is just the way it works. It's a matter of how you resolve those issues. And how can you resolve those issues if you're waiting for the other person to change? That's going to be pretty difficult. So that's why I'm saying you're not working on the relationship, you're working on yourself. This is something, if someone gets this idea, if they get the idea that they're working on themselves, it really changes the relationship. So there's no substitute for loving yourself. And how you feel about yourself is the important part of this. If you learn to care about yourself and learn to differentiate yourself, and which means kind of separate in a sense, not cutting off, not caring, but finding yourself. A lot of times people will in session tell me, I don't know myself. I don't know what I like. I don't know who I am. Women especially will say that because they're so focused on the relationship and focused on having the other person be there for them, and men as well. Men can lose themselves in the relationship. Anyone can do that. If you lose yourself in the relationship, it's wonderful and it feels good and it's part of that romantic love. But if it goes on too long and you're lost in the relationship and you're not getting your needs met and you're not satisfied, that's when it turns bad. So that's what we're talking about, or what I'm talking about is, if you can differentiate what you like and who you are and what you need. And in a sense, this is related to your family of origin. So your family of origin, you had certain roles, you had certain ways of being. You were the quiet one, or you were the strong one, or you were the caring one, or you were the support, or you were the hero. Whatever your role in the family of origin, you're going to bring into the marriage. And so differentiation involves disconnecting yourself from that family of origin role, that glue that has made you part of that family of origin, that stuckedness, that way that you have always been and that you're bringing into the relationship that may not be working for you, because maybe the partner that you picked is someone who inadvertently to yourself is helping you grow up or change or be a person, a better person in terms of your self-esteem or in terms of your independence. If you've always been the person who's been there for everybody else and you're with someone who is not accepting that in the way that maybe mom or dad did, then you have to pay attention to that, because it's going to be very frustrating and very difficult, and you're going to wonder, what am I doing here? Well, initially you picked that partner possibly on some level to help you pay attention to the growth potential in not being stuck in that way, not being glued to those roles in the family of origin. And so change is part of a relationship, and change is part of becoming healthy and self-differentiated and finding what your potential is and what you care about. Your family of origin is always inside of you. That is what we believe at Family Tree. And so you're trying to heal your insides so you can be better in the relationship. You cannot work on the other person. You cannot work on the relationship. That doesn't work, but you can work on yourself. So you want to shed those roles, that role that you've always had, and shed the way that you've acted in that role to be a better and healthier person. Expected roles that from your family of origin kept you comfortable in doing what you always have done. And like I said, when we marry someone, when we're in a relationship, often those roles don't work, or they don't work for long. And that's what we're trying to do. And by having someone who frustrates us and is difficult in the relationship in certain ways, it brings up those feelings. If we attribute those feelings to the other person and blame them for the feelings that we have that are not comfortable, then we're lost. If we attribute those feelings to our roles in our family of origin, and we are seeing that maybe we were healthy enough to pick someone who helps us to our potential, then we're not lost. Then that's where the change happens, and that's where there can be the vulnerability and the intimacy. So, in other words, not being stuck in the way that you've always been. If you are comfortable with that, that's great, but a partner is going to help you in some ways by not letting you be comfortable with that, not letting you be so anxious or oblivious or counterdependent, which is, oblivious and strong-willed and emotionally distant, or anxious about everything, or the hero, the rescuer, the person who in your family helped everyone. Your partner is going to help you by frustrating your efforts to do that, which sounds backwards, I understand, but it really isn't. It really isn't. Those roles and that family glue just doesn't work in relationships for too long, and doesn't work for us. So we're trying to be healthier by being in a relationship. And if we put it on the other person and blame them for frustrating those feelings, those normal, so to speak, usual feelings, then we're missing the point. The point being, we're trying to free ourselves. We're trying to free ourselves from the glue of the family of origin, from the roles of the family of origin, and not abandon our real self. That's what we're doing. By being stuck in those roles, we're abandoning the potential of a real self. Thank you for listening. This was Stop Working on the Relationship, and the second part of it should be work on yourself. Work on yourself. I'm Andy Holzman. My phone number is 317-457-8668. You can also reach me at aholzman, Holzman 2 at Comcast.net. And please contact me, especially if you're ready to work on yourself. And certainly you can come in wanting to work on the relationship, because that's how people start. The focus is always going to be my pain and what the other person has brought up in me. But that's not the end result. So thanks again. This is Andy Holzman, and I'll talk to you soon. Appreciate you listening.